in Korea and in China. In China or Korea, you probably get a million or close to $1 million US for about 15 to 20. So I think we are one third.
Did you say that? Let me just get those numbers right correctly, because those numbers, and that's for seed funding. It's $1 million US.
In Korea, you get $1 million for less than 20%.
For less than 20, valuing the company at $5 million. But how advanced are these seed capital companies?
What do you mean?
How advanced are these ideas when they're getting seed capital? Where do they have to be?
Probably bigger entrepreneurs with a bigger less than 1,000.
Sorry, you just broke up there a while ago. What was that?
It's like with a prototype with less than 1,000 users.
Okay, thanks. That's actually very good. The other thing I think was you said in China though it's about 300,000 US for seed capital for about 20% also. So valuing the companies at one. That's Taiwan. Okay, all right. Okay.
More than 500 users.
And how many users? The same kind of metrics for users?
You probably need to hit 10,000.
Okay, all right. But I think it's now kind of like the environment there is changing though in both Korea and in China. Is that correct?
Yes, China right now is
okay, all right. So the bubble kind of is bursting there. All right. Okay, I just wanted to know in terms of valuation where else or what they were actually offering us with that.
Everybody, O2O type of startup in China was very hot. You don't even need to get a prototype. That's why I was making a joke, right? If you have a bike and a cell phone, you're selling that you're riding a bike to wash cars in China about 2 years ago. You can actually probably get fundraised. Last year alone, about 800 seed A round company collapsed. They closed their doors last year. 800 company that received Series A closed down in China. Most of them are doing O2O. So right now there's a big collapse of O2O in China. So the
O2O means what? Wait, what does O2O mean?
Online to offline. Let's say you order a service, and then the transaction can only be completed offline. So Uber would be a good online offline example. You order a cab, but in order to complete the service, you actually need to get out of the internet and actually interact with people from that service. So that's online to offline. It's a very common term here in Asia.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. All right. Do you want to continue, Dan? Sorry about that. I just wanted to get understanding what's another question. Hold on a second. Do you want to? Yeah. Then you can actually. Yeah, if you can come up, then he can actually see you when you're asking your question. So, and just remember to put it back mute for when he has to answer. 1 second, Dave. We're just gonna have them so you can actually see who you're talking to.
Right? Sure. Let me try to open my browser and see who I'm talking to.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Okay. Hi, David.
Hello.
I'm Winston Wilkins from Startup Robot, and I'm wondering if online to offline is something that's attractive to investors there, or is it that they're looking for online to online type businesses?
If you want to do online offline, you're probably already late in Asia. Unless you're doing something very specific and something very unique. Let's say you want to do motorbikes delivery, that's already done. If you want to do car washing, that's already done. But if you want to tap into education, it's something new. Education in Asia has always been a problem that hasn't been solved. So you got to be very niche in terms of online, offline.
Okay, so is it online to online, or is it big data that's attractive to Asia at this time? Or?
What maybe another way to rephrase that is, what's actually hot in Asia right now in terms of concepts?
If you're in
Anything?
China, then VR or AR.
Augmented reality, AR?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
VR, AR, okay. All right.
Okay, all right.
If people are thinking about e-commerce, basically in China, it's all controlled by BAT, Alibaba, Tencent, and other. They control probably 90% of the entire thing in China. So it's really tough in China. Or actually, let me put it this way: e-commerce in Asia overall is way of life. My wife shops online while we have a supermarket downstairs. That's how Asians are very dependent. And e-commerce in Asia is very competitive because you need 4 elements to make your e-commerce successful. One is people compete on number of products. So all these e-commerce players, they've been started about 10 years ago. So number of products, you can never compete against them. Number 2, delivery. Over here in Taiwan, we are competing delivering less than 1 hour or 3 hours. Or 6 hours. So the moment you order, you will get the thing less than 6 hours. It means that you need to have your own fleet of delivery, or you partner with a big enough and fast enough fleet. Number 3, you gotta have ability to curate. It means that it's not just put things on e-commerce sites and compete against price. You need to be able to tell a story. You need to be a very good bloggers. You need to write about this. So there are these 3 or 4 major elements in order to build a very successful e-commerce. So I've heard somebody mention about big data. Well, there's a big controversy about the value of big data. I just invited somebody from Alibaba. They actually, after spending a lot of money, effort in consumer shopping prediction model, they failed. And the reason they failed in using big data to predict shopping behavior is shopping is never rational. Shopping is a very irrational thing. So if it's irrational, then how can you predict? So big data play, if it's in the context of shopping, you'll be hard. If it's for something else, like the weather, like other things, then there's value. So I'm not sure if I answered to most of the questions, and I know there's a lady waiting for asking questions. Go ahead.
All right, thanks, David. My name is Danique, and I think earlier you had mentioned, I think, industries that the VCs would traditionally invest in Taiwan. I'm not sure if I misheard, but had you said that they would traditionally invest in things like LCDs and LEDs? And I'm not sure if that's literally you're talking about hardware, because if so, yeah. I'm curious to know if they're actually, would that mean then that hardware-based startups actually are more attractive to Taiwanese investors than say they would be to those in San Francisco?
Well, when we talk about LEDs and LCDs and semiconductors, we're talking about these soccer field plants. We're not so much talking about the products because VC believes that if you fail, at least there are residual value that they can claim back, such as plants and cars and so on. If it's just purely a software, even the investment is uncomparable. I mean, investing in a semiconductor costs about $100 billion. Investing in a software costs less than $500,000, right? But the concept in terms of tradition is the investor will still think in their back mind, if you fail, they have to write a report. And if all the startup in the software oriented that took their laptop and gone to, out of the country, there's nothing to claim back and there's nothing to closure. Traditional VC doesn't know how to close a like a startup investment. They just don't, right? Because the biggest capital in the startup is probably MacBooks, right? There's no building and there's no offices. So that's why in their structure, it's very difficult for them. They're not afraid about losing money. I mean, there's 90% of the software or startup will fail anyway. They just don't know how to interact with the whole system. They just don't. That's why you have Dave McClure Financial Startup here in Taiwan setting shops. In Taiwan, lovely gave financial startup Dave McClure $10 million for matching fund. We are really mimicking what Silicon Valley is doing. So a new breed of investor just came out, right? And we're still getting momentum. Back to your question, would a hardware startup, or if a hardware gone to a Kickstarter, will get a lot of investment? The answer is no. There are a few very successful Kickstarter projects from Taiwan getting $1 million. Overall, amateurs or non-experienced startup dealing hardware is doomed to fail. And there was recently few projects that failed miserably. And that has sent a signal to the Taiwan or Asian investor that investing a computing company and investing to a completely new category such as rocket flying to the space or these unseen products, people are actually afraid because there's no experience in diving into these hardware startups. You can't even find a talent right now on Earth building a rocket flying to Mars, right? So gaining big sales in Kickstarter is one thing. Making that product come true is another thing. So the hype over IoT or the hype over hardware startup is actually came down a bit. So investor is actually hesitant to invest in hardware. It's not even about the money. It's just you can't find talents for something that was never done before, right? Correct? You can't even find a plant that manufacture or help you to do the molding if people don't know what that is. So not sure if that answered your question. Okay. We welcome questions.
I think that's it for right now. So you could continue the presentation and we'll take questions as you continue.
Okay. Just for people who want to hardware start, we're very welcoming in Taiwan. It's not that we don't welcome. We welcome, right? But we just want to give everybody a realistic view. There are a few hardware accelerators in Asia. So there's one in Shenzhen. So they call HAX, H-A-X, and you guys can look them up as well. All right.
Sorry, David, could you switch back to your presentation? We're not seeing your screen.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right.
All right, so these are the makers and startup spaces, and there's annual events, there are monthly meetups, there is crowdfunding. What's very interesting is Taiwan is out of very few countries in the world to launch crowdfunding for equity. So the law has passed. There's actually 3 platforms going to come online very soon. So we are the first few in the world to launch crowdfunding for equity. So we'll probably need to tell you in 6 months about how that is going. There's other actually new type of service. They actually offer consulting service to help you to launch a successful Kickstarter or Indiegogo project. So if you ever want to come to Taiwan and launch your campaign from Taiwan on Kickstarter, there is available resources and they're quite good as well. These are raising millions US dollars projects. So you can see that Taiwan ecosystem is actually growing at a very fast pace. Here's a quick overview of accelerators, and for people who are thinking rolling into accelerator in Taiwan and Asia. Accelerator in Taiwan and Asia compared to accelerator in US is very different. If you look at the international accelerator definition, you usually will find 4 key elements. One is, do they give funding a initial? Do they actually have batches? Meaning that do they have a fixed time for you to submit your applications and a fixed demo days? Or do they have a wide range of mentors? And do they have big demo show? And over here, you can see that most accelerators here in Taiwan, they do not give you money ahead of time. It's not only a Taiwan thing, it's an Asian thing. So if you're thinking coming to an accelerator in Asia and hoping to receive some money, such as Find Your Startup Y Combinator, maybe 30,000 US dollar for 8%, or like Find Your Startup right now, I think they are looking at 500K for 8%. You don't have that in Asia. Some of the accelerator, like the MOX, they're one from China or Asia. They give you marketing resources. One of the big internet company in China, Tencent, also the parent company of WeChat, they give you free WeChat advertising in exchange of maybe 3 to 5% equity. So giving money is not a typical thing, but giving resources, yes. Or if you look at most of these startups, they just don't give you. They just don't take your equity. Okay, so in Asia, you see a lot of accelerators don't take the equity. That's something very unique. Batches. Not all these startups run in batches, so they don't. Some run as you come. So you can go in all the time. So it's more like core space / accelerator / incubation. Mentors. Actually, I'm not sure if you guys know, there's no business model in running accelerator unless you invest in a lot of teams. So there's actually a lot of accelerator is actually a cost center. So number of mentors, meaning that you need to spend a lot of time in engaging, maintaining the relationship. So not a lot of accelerator have wide range of mentors. I was speaking to Dave McClure when he was here in Taiwan. There are 300 to 600. There are 300 to 500 mentors, right? So you don't see that in Taiwan or in Asia. Well, demo show, definitely people do a lot of demo show. So you can see that they are government funded and also private ones. So I think we are there, but we just have a different definition compared to the one in Silicon Valley. These are the co-working space and maker space. There are more than 80. I didn't list them all, but I list the one that they actually have guidelines or membership that you can sign in, and there's actually people, a community manager. So if you go to Taiwan, there are 5 different cities that you can go, and the price for a co-work space is really cheap. It's less than some will charge about 30 US dollars. Some will charge about 100 US dollars. And the most expensive is around 200 US dollars per month. And most governments are free. So startup teams and contributors, we actually have a lot of startup that receive international fund. So international investors are very familiar in investing team in Taiwan. For example, Appier is an internet. I forgot what's that keywords. Real-time bidding advertising network. So they receive 6 million or 5 million in their Series A from the top 3 VCs. We have Easy Table here to restaurant booking. Now they are really a Series B. We have Picolage. That is probably the #1 iOS app for photo mix-up. They have 10 million downloads and so on. International startups, they are actually quite a lot. From US, you have Uber. In China, you have Tencent. We have a lot of Southeast Asian and Hong Kong startup. So we have Lalamove from Hong Kong. We even had the Brazilian Easy Taxi, but they closed down their operation. We have a lot of Korean startup coming to Taiwan. Every 2 to 3 months, there's a Korean startup that comes in Taiwan for the purpose that I just mentioned, as they view Taiwan as a hub and also an entry point, not only to China, but also to Southeast Asia. This was, I was very privileged to attend one of the gathering. This is actually about a year ago. And this was a very important moment. That was when Dave McClure 500 startups. There is a big VC from Japan. Most of the people enrolling his batches. This is actually Jamie from AppWork. He's actually the godfather in Taiwan. He's the one that launched the first accelerator.
Hey, hi, David. Sorry, we actually just lost you for a little bit. Our internet connection went bad. Could you back up a little bit? The last we heard was when you were describing who the international startups were.
Yeah.
Sorry, if you could just back up a little bit, we'd appreciate that.
All right. So for the startups, I actually don't have their logos here. So we have like the US famous startups that actually set up shops. Here is Uber, Twitch. Actually, if you're in a gaming startup, Taiwan is definitely the place to be. For Android.
One question, David.
Sorry, David. Did you say just gaming? Because we have a gaming stream here. So if you can just tell us a little bit more about the gaming and what you guys actually are famous for there. You said a gaming thing, so just attracted our attention. That's all. You can talk a little bit about that as you continue through your presentation.
Sure. I didn't know until recently that if you're talking about Android paid mobile games, Taiwan is the 4th largest market in the world. They are big game resellers here in Taiwan, but recently we've been seeing a lot of independent gaming companies here in Taiwan. And there's a very close working relationship among Taiwan gaming startups with the Korean, Japanese. I'm not sure if you guys know, a lot of animation that you see in Disney or Pixar is actually from Taiwan. Taiwan is very famous for games, OEMs, and also for music animation. And about 2-3 years ago, these are the game developers, right? But now we see Twitch launched their branch office about a year ago. So now you not only have gaming developers, now you have game superstars, game players that they will go to the studios and they play games and they are fans, right? Recently, there was a Japanese founder that successfully raised a Series A. He launched a website for people to discuss about tricks in games, but also he launched a studio that will featuring amateurs or semi-professional game players. And then Google Hong Kong and Google Taiwan recently has subcontracted a lot of advertising promotion for them. So a typical game advertising project starts $30 $30,000 US. So you can see whether if you want to be the advertising space, you want to be in the studio space, you want to be in the cosplay or anything. It's actually an ecosystem here. So if you're a game developer, Taiwan is the place to be. Mark, does that answer your question? I can't hear you, Mark. I cannot hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we'll be sending our gamers to you right away. All right. Yeah, you can continue. Thanks, David.
Okay. All right. So one thing to add, in international startups, out of actually we receive Taiwan receive about one Korean startup every 2 to 3 months. Koreans are very aggressive, and then when they come, they all speak Chinese, or half the team speak Chinese. We had a privilege to represent the Korean startups here in Taiwan and partnering them with a telecom company. Now we represent a Japanese web-based Skype company here in Taiwan. So there's a lot of international startups, and actually Taiwanese government are giving subsidies to, if you open a branch office, or if you open a wholly owned Taiwanese company here, you can actually get grant. And now government are actually English friendly, although you still need to kind of fill up your application in Chinese, but to be able to converse in English with the government getting a grant, that's not a problem. Here is the ecosystem. These are a very vibrant ecosystem contributor here. I had a pleasure to join this gathering about a year ago. And in the middle is actually Democrat from 500 startup. Most of them are the batches, the Taiwanese startup team that enrolled his batch in US. Jamie is the godfather here in Taiwan. He's the one that founded the first accelerator here in Taiwan. And just mentioned that Taiwan startup team actually performed very well in Asia. One of the well-known event rolled out of the Singapore is actually called Echelon. Echelon is somewhere less like TechCrunch in US. So this team iChef over here, they won top 3 in this event. TechCrunch Beijing, the number 1 2 years ago, was actually a Taiwanese team. And this team, VFI, is doing very well in Japan right now. So talking about government initiatives, right now there are 42 government initiatives in central government across 30 ministries. That's a lot. So we have launched recently a website. The government has launched a website, and then they categorize in 4 different stages of startup: creative, getting mentoring, getting capital, and getting R&D. So I'm also very privileged to be one of the advisor to head of the minister. So actually now the legislature or the ministry actually open up for civilian to go in and give advices. Taiwan spent a lot of time trying to learn from our neighbor Korea and Singapore, and we have launched these initiatives in the past 18 months. So we now have 3 physical portals for different purposes. So if you are foreign startups, or if you are Taiwanese startup want to go to US, this is our international gateway. They all speak English over there, and they all very, they're expert in social media and tweeters. So this is Taiwan Startup Stadium. This is TIEC. We open up an office in Silicon Valley. So for startup team that is already in Silicon Valley, either they got through a 500 startup or YC or Techstart, etc., they can go there for mental support. and also get funding for their living expenses. Startup Hub is more for if you want to do startup in Taiwan, whether if you're international teams or if you're local teams. So it's one-stop shopping center. You're going in, and they will tell you exactly what out of 42 government initiatives that you can use, and they will refer you back to different offices. So it's like a family general practitioners that you go see first, and then they will refer you to a specialist. So they're also bilingual there. So I've brought different people from different countries to connect with them. So I brought the one-stop shopping center from Japan, and so on. As for a virtual portal that I've just said, there's this website that allow people to check in virtually on what type of government initiative available. We are recently launching this rapid prototyping platform. So if you're doing hardware before you just want to launch pre-production on Kickstarter, or you just raise money from Kickstarter, you want to do a quick prototype. So the idea is to build a platform for you to find reliable and cost-effective and startup-friendly providers. We're not there yet. This initiative is to overcome the lack of support as people would suspect in Shenzhen, China. So this is actually a friendly competitor of what China is doing. So China is probably, in terms of rapid prototype, they're probably about 2-3 years ahead of us. But the reason that Taiwan believes that they still get a chance is trust is the big thing when you build startups. So right now, recently we've been attracting a lot of international hardware startups. They choose Taiwan instead of China, just simply because trust issues. This is a international startup competition pitch demo last year. I haven't get a chance to update it this year. So in Taiwan, there are several international English-speaking startup conferences. So if you do consider to come here, in these big conferences, English is great. In Asia, you can see a lot of different countries have their own events. These are very TechCrunch-like events. So definitely, and on average, at the monthly basis, we have 40 to 60 startup events across Taiwan. So the next slides, I'm reaching to the end of my presentation for Taiwan ecosystem overview. I know Mark has asked me to prepare some slides about what we share typically with startups. We can probably pause here for questions before we jump into pre-incubation tips or concepts.
Okay.
Question?
Thanks, David. Thanks, David. I don't know if you guys have any questions you want David to go into. We're kind of running longer. I'm not sure how much more time. And I know, by the way, guys, it's 1:45 your time, David, almost 2 a.m. in the morning. So, do you guys have any questions? Huh? No? David, did you want to run through the other thing that very quickly about how long do you think it will take?
It'll probably take about 10 minutes.
Okay, you guys got 10 minutes? Yeah, they said, okay, good. They're willing and waiting. So let's run ahead through then. Thanks, David.
Okay. So the typical startup journey probably is the same or very different, but how we kind of approach is a lot of people want to do startup here in Taiwan. Taiwan is probably the most dense startup country in Asia. But a lot of people do startup for the wrong reason. They want to do for money. They want to do to prove to their parents. They want to do to prove to their bosses. But right now, what we're trying to do is you're launching a startup because you want to solve a problem. So there's definitely a lot of great ideas. So the next stage is projects. Project is where you try to find co-founders. Startup is when you definitely want to set up and register a company. So in terms of our pre-incubation program, we this is the phase we are sharing with everybody. So when you're moving from idea to project to startup to from break even to profit to company, and then when you get too comfortable, you will be disrupted by other startups. So this is what we're seeing in terms of startup journey. This is what we really want to share with everybody. I'm sure most of you or some of you already know, because I'm also an angel investor as well. So when we look at the pitches, we can probably decide whether if you want to invest in this team less than 1 minute. So if you really want to get fundraise here in Asia, I get pitched about probably 50 to 100 times from ideas to slides, 2 to 3 months. So this is the guideline I use, market product teams. So in terms of market, you really want to solve a problem that has a growing market right behind it. You got to have a very clear problem statement. It's probably less than 5 words. Product, we are right now here in Taiwan. We are we practice lean startup religiously, and also disruptive innovation from this professor in Harvard. So at least for me, you don't need to build a super perfect product. You just need to build a good enough product to disrupt, meaning that you need to have a business model day one. Or when I do startup weekend or through my 8-week spring incubation program, team go on the street and collect money on day one. In terms of team, there are a lot of great videos on YouTube. If you haven't get a chance to watch how to start a startup on YouTube by YC, this is a good time. So for co-founders, you really want to find somebody you know more than 1 year, or you have a prior experience working with. They gotta be resistant, and they gotta have a lot of resources. In terms of for a core team, you want to find people who are better than you, smarter than you, hardworking than you, because doing a startup is not about protecting your idea and keep all those 50% share. It's actually about solving problem. So typically we like to say that it's not about you. It's about the people suffering from the problem. So if there's other people who can do a better job, then we will encourage the startup team to embrace these people. And startup, actually, we focus on result, not the process. So you got to find people who can make things happen. And also you got to find people that you love to work with. So these are the 3 elements and that we look into when we invest in team, at least I do. And this is how the 3 cornerstone that we put into our pre-incubation program. And that I would like to conclude my presentation right now. And then I do thank everybody for the time.
Hi, David. Thanks so much. We actually had one question from Gafar. He just wants to know if there are any programs to support Caribbean startups.
You mean in Taiwan or in Asia?
Yes, correct.
We are probably the one that runs international pre-incubation program, or we are probably the one that do soft landing for international startup. I don't think we don't tentatively categorize startup or candidates in terms of countries. I help people from Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, and US. So so I'm not sure if that answers your questions.
Yeah, so basically you're saying it's not necessarily Caribbean specific, but pretty much anyone can take advantage of that opportunity with you guys.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's what we want to hear.
And I think, David, we discussed as for specifically with our startup Jamaican teams, that if they ever wanted to come by, they'd have a soft landing in your startup space. Was that correct? Oh, he's gone.
Great. We welcome you guys.
He will. So David was in particular and very welcoming to it. So that is always an option that's there for you guys. If you need a soft landing, David had said he'd provide that for you guys. Are there any other questions? David, there's one thing I actually saw on there was the product was good enough. Can you expand on that little point a little bit more?
Okay, sure. It's a concept from various books or methodology. So if you guys want to read in depth, there's actually from this professor from Harvard. He has YouTube videos that talk about disruptive innovation. So what he encouraged, also this guy that wrote a book from 0 to 1, they say that if you target to a small niche that currently not addressed by big company, you don't need to have a perfect product because all these big companies will not come to this. What you need to do is do a good enough product in terms of you don't need to have all the features. You need to have the key features that people want to pay money, and they are okay that you don't have all the bells and whistles. So a typical example that the professor from Harvard gave was before computer, they were typewriter, right? So people love typewriters. When computer came in, word processor break down, computer running slow, but they are people willing to give computer a try, even though something you have hard time feeling. But the reason that people switch from typewriter to computer is that you don't need to retype. And apparently that pain point and that needs is good enough for people to adopt computer, although they may encounter a lot of crashes. As computer improves, typewriter is disrupted. So that's what I mean good enough. If you have clearly pinpoint the problem you want to solve, and the people realize that they want to give it a try, then don't worry about improving your product right away. It's more about really knowing that you are not hitting this niche by accident. So that's what we mean by.
Thanks, David. Are there any other questions? No.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You did mention something.
David, we have one question coming.
Sure.
Yes. Hello, David.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. Earlier, you had mentioned something about startups in the education environment. Can you say a little more about it for me, please?
Yeah. Actually, there's a lot of people that don't have access to internet or don't have access to books in Asia. You'll be surprised. I mean, if you look at India, if you look at Indonesia, if you look at China, even in Taiwan. So is a purely digital books a solution to solve lack of education resources? And the answer is no. So right now, what Taiwan has promoted is social-driven startups, meaning that startup focus on social impacts. And then you see more company and even Mark, right? When we were at Startup Nation this year, there's this focus on social responsibility or social impacts. So if you're doing a topic that will on the first day, you're aim to benefit millions of people involved, you will actually get a lot of support from the government and the corporate as well. So education would be one. Senior care will be two. Medical distribution or resource redistribution would be three. Matching volunteers against nonprofit organizer and people needed, that's four. All these are great startup ideas, and they are not really technology heavy driven, but the challenge is not so much about building a beautiful website. It's actually really putting yourself in their shoes and come up with an ecosystem that everybody wins. and that's tough. So education would be exactly in that area.
Thank you, David. Are there any other questions? Oh, we have one question online actually. Cheyenne would like to know why most Asians would rather use WeChat than Facebook and others. Why are people using WeChat versus Facebook and others? I think Cheyenne is actually developing a app for, I guess, the video Snapchat, if you'd like to call it.
Okay. If you want to go to China, you gotta treat China as a separate monster than Asia. In terms of startup, China is not Asia. China is in its category. They are, actually, I'm not sure if you guys know, if you think about cloud service between Microsoft and Google and Microsoft and AWS, which service provider will you use? That's in North America. Will you host on AWS or Microsoft?
AWS.
So if you have your service on AWS in China, nobody will invest in you because AWS doesn't work in China. Microsoft has already paid its due. They are very close tie with China government. So if you are a startup running on Microsoft Azure, investor says, wow, you understand China market, I will invest in you. So you gotta treat China as a different monster.
Wow, that's actually going to be good news for Cheyenne, who actually is using Azure instead of AWS. So by luck, all right. Thank you for that hint.
So I just use that as an illustration to explain to the WeChat story. There are three big companies and they own most of the market in China. BAT. These three-letter words stands for different companies. ACE is
Alibaba.
Yeah, Alibaba.
Alibaba. Yeah, I know it's 2 a.m. now, David. It's okay. Yeah. We understand.
Yeah. T is actually Tencent, the parent company of WeChat. Let me just give you how powerful WeChat is in China. If you try to get a cab, and if you don't use WeChat, no cab driver want to give you a ride. Because if you use WeChat to call a cab, the cab driver will probably get 5 renminbi, $1 additional cashback from WeChat. If you go to a bread store, you want to pay in cash, you will not get discount. If you use WeChat payment, you get discounts. So WeChat is in the daily life of, I think, 13 billion people in China. So if you want to go to China, your service needs to be compatible with WeChat. WeChat right now is currently building 25 co-work spaces in China, and they welcome international startups. And actually, WeChat and Tencent is our strategic partner here in Taiwan. So if you want to get to know more about WeChat, we'll be more than happy to share.
Thanks for that, David. I hope that answered Cheyenne's question. Are there any more questions?
What does the B in?
Oh, what's the B in BAT?
It's 2 o'clock in the morning.
But it's Baidu, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Baidu.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, David. All right. We'll actually end it there, and thank you so much for actually staying up and actually coming across. I thought it was very fascinating the look into and being the first inaugural speaker from elsewhere in the world in terms of an accelerator and what's happening in the world. So thank you so much for doing this. And I'm hoping to see you in Colombia. And I'm hoping also that you may consider stopping by in Jamaica on your way back.
Will do. Well.
Okay. Thanks, David.
Thank you guys.
Bye. Good night. Sleep well.
Good night.